I'm John McNaught. I'm the studio manager here at Highland Print Studio. So we do a variety of printmaking techniques in the building. It's an open access studio for artists or anyone to come and make use of. I'm going to show you a little bit of lino cut. So we're going to do a 2-colour reduction cut print, take you through the process. And then we'll be joined by Alison McMenemy, who's the director, and we'll do a little bit of screen print. And I'll give you two techniques that we offer in the building, alongside other ones as well. So this is lino, linoleum, flooring material, but this stuff created especially for artists. And what I've done is sketched a quick design on it to give us something to work with. These marks, sometimes it can look a little bit scrappy. It was just quickly sketched on, but they're only guidelines. They're not going to make any impression on the final image, final print, which will all be the cut marks from the tools. A couple of things to notice when I'm doing it is this is directly printed, so it'll be peeled off the paper. You'll see it peel off the paper. So direct means it goes straight onto the paper, and it means that the image is a mirror image of what goes on the lino. So I've used, to demonstrate that, I've used text, some writing. So the writing that I'll cut, and you can see it written on there, is done back to front. So this is a hot plate, gently warms the lino, makes it a little bit softer. So now what I'm going to do is start cutting the lino block itself. These are the tools I'll be using to cut. They've all got what they call mushroom handles, because it looks a bit like a mushroom. Fits in your hand with your pointing finger just behind the blade, so not like a pencil, but into your hand. You'll see me using it. They're sharp, and they're a mix of either what are called V gouges or U gouges. This is a U, this is a V, so hopefully you can see the difference. They look like the letters on the cutting blade itself. So generally V's used for cutting lines, U's for clearing. So starting off with the cutting, I'm going to cut an outline around this figure, and with the gouge you can see I'm pushing it in and moving it forward like a plough through the lino. And it's cutting what are white lines. So if you imagine that we inked up without doing any of this in black ink, we'd have a black rectangle. The roller goes across the surface and it can't get in to the grooves. So they are basically white lines, or negative lines on a black background. It's not dissimilar to working on a blackboard. The ink is going onto the relief, or the raised area, hence relief printmaking. And you can see that, like I said earlier, the tools are sharp. So one of the problems is if it shoots forward like this and I'm holding it here, it's going straight into my hand. So this hand is always kind of in this position behind the tool, therefore safe. And so the key to it really is this rotation of the block that you'll see me doing quite a bit of. So I basically cut an outline around the figure. This is white lines, remember, on a dark background. I'm going to clear a little bit more beside this. So every mark I'm making is a white mark, so I'm now using a U gouge to clear. This is going to give us a bit of a thicker outline. Okay, so I've got the face how I'd like it really, so I'm now going to start on some of the lettering, which, remember I was saying, has to be done back to front. And again, I'm not clearing it all, because I'll be leaving some for the second colour, which is what reduction cutting is all about. I'm just thinking about the lightest areas of the print. So we're finished with the cutting and ready to print the first colour. So it doesn't look too much like it, at the moment. It's just really the highlight areas and the white areas. So we'll see, we'll get a first colour down, and then I'll cut some more and you'll see it start to take shape. So moved over to the inking area, and I'm going to get some of this orange ink on this nice roller and over the surface of the block. So the ink is oil based that we use in the studio, so it's lovely rich ink, quite stiff, so not like the ink you would normally see in like a fountain pen or something. So we're just, you can see now the image starting to take shape. I'm just going to lightly roll up the top here so it's not got quite so much ink on it. And I'm covering the rest of the block with a nice smooth layer of ink. And this is where you start to see the design really take shape. So we're good to go for the first print. So now we're getting to the bit where we place the block, the inked up block, onto this registration sheet which is on the press bed. So you can see these three little blocks, they're called registration blocks here, and it needs to be accurately positioned so that each colour will line up perfectly. So now the paper, which also has to be accurately placed, and it's put onto these pins with these registration tabs and dropped into place, and then our packing sheets on top. So now it's come through the press and I'm just lifting off the packing sheets, and then we'll see what we've got for the first print on the paper. So now that we've printed the first colour, we're about to start cutting the second. It's a tricky thing to understand, but if I was to print this in a dark over the top of the orange, the whites would stay white, but the surface would cover over all of the orange. So now if I cut more, everything that I cut is going to remain orange, not white. The whites are already fixed, and it's now cutting everything I want. I just think it's going to be orange or a mid-tone. If you think of it tonally, I've got whites or lights, mids, orange, dark, about to be printed. So I'm just finishing up with the final clearing here, and let's do a little bit of final scoring at the back, and then we should be, hopefully, good to go. So as long as I register it properly when we come to print, then hopefully we'll have a two-colour print. Doesn't look like much, but hopefully it'll become clear once I ink it up. So for the second time, back at the inking table, the colour's not hugely important as long as it's darker. So I'm going to go for a kind of dark bluey green, and that'll give us the tonal jump. So we'll have the paper, then the orange, then the dark colour. So that's it all good to go. You can see the areas that were orange that I've cut away are no longer orange on the block, and we're ready to go to the press again and see what it all looks like. So as before, everything has to be accurate, so placing it back down onto the registration block exactly where it was the first time. And again, same with the paper, which has the orange on it of course, and is now going to be overprinted with the green. Packing pad down, and through she goes. So, packing pad off, and this is Japanese paper, so you can sort of partially see it through it, but if I peel back, we should have a print. So we're now in our screen printing room, and we're going to screen print onto fabric. This is a t-shirt design that we've been asked to do, a charity. This is a glass artist's work, so we were provided with a photograph, and then we have to make this thing, which is a positive or a transparency, to go onto the screen. To adapt the photo for screen, we've put a fine dot pattern or a half tone on the image and printed it on our large format inkjet printer onto this transparency. The transparency will then be exposed onto the screen. The screen is coated with a light sensitive emulsion, and the image is pressed against it in the exposure unit. Once it's exposed, the areas that are shielded by the black ink wash out with water and leave a stencil that you can see on the screen, and then it's ready for printing. Okay, so the t-shirt is in position, and Alison's going to print this onto it's using a lovely Barbie pink ink, and we'll just lift the screen into position as well. Just giving it a wee stir and onto the screen above the image. So it needs to be slightly wider than the image. You're doing it about the width of the squeegee that's going to push it through, because the ink, as well as going through, it also lubricates the squeegee, so you need it more ink than you would need, but it gets all put back in afterwards. The great thing with screen ink, it can be used again. So the squeegee is a rubber blade, and it's going to push through the mesh of the screen onto the fabric, and I'm just holding the screen in place while Alison prints it. So when we lift it off, hopefully we'll have a t-shirt. We're just flooding it again for the next one. And you can see now the finished print on the t-shirt. So the final job is to heat press the t-shirt, which activates a catalyst in the ink and means that it's permanently on the t-shirt.